Welcome to the Seikird Healing Podcast, where the old is new, the ancient is innovative, and the forgotten is remembered. We believe that sacred healing is your birthright. Join us on each episode as we uniquely, authentically, and mystically dive into the bold and vulnerable life of many magical humans. From breath, spirituality, shadow work, and all things in the esoteric realm of healing, we don't leave any stone unturned on this bold journey of growth as we start to explore the remembrance of what it means to be human. So take a deep breath in and a deep breath out, and let's get sacred.
Hello, beautiful beings. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever this podcast is coming to you. Today, I'm chatting with my gorgeous and beautiful and wild and untamed friend, Amy. And Amy is so deeply connected to her feminine flow, rooted in trust and in knowing. She holds an innate gift of anchoring spaces for inner transformation and deepened self-awareness and personal evolution. And she fuses her natural reclaimed wisdom and gifts and her shamanic work and mediumship and psychic abilities through many different methodologies. And she is a master of ecstatic dance. And anytime she's dancing, I can look over an ecstatic dance ceremony and I'm like, that's Amy. She is so wild and free, and she desires to cultivate deeper intimacy through connection and honest conversations to create a more beautiful world. And if you follow her on social media, you'll see her reintroducing the world to ancient technologies, including period masks. Yes, you heard that right. And if you want to follow more about Amy, check her out on social media. All the links will be below. But without further ado, check out this episode and this wild conversation with my good friend, Amy. Whew. Everyone, welcome to the Seikird Healing Podcast. Today, I am so excited because I'm talking to Amy, who has been a friend over the past year, really. And we've gotten closer even over the past couple months. And we've just really connected on many things, but some of those being the topics that we'll dive in today. And I've just been so impressed and inspired by witnessing all of her joy that she's bringing into the world, all of the authenticity and freedom that she's bringing into the world. And I think that she's got such a beautiful message to share with creating art into her space and weaving into her space. So welcome, Amy. I am super pumped to be talking to you today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and just talking about the beauty that's weaved in this world with you. And yeah, there's so much magic, and I'm honored to know you. And yeah,
thank you. And for everyone listening to the podcast, tell us where you're from, because you are up in Canada. So tell us all about where you're from, and essentially, I want to get to how you're building the life you love, but I want to start and kind of backtrack as to like, who's Amy? Give us your background and how you kind of got where you are today.
Yeah. So I am from Canada. I am from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. So I'm right in the middle of Canada, in the middle province, and we're very much like, I live in a place that feels very rural. Like there's a lot of small towns, there's a lot of farmers. I didn't grow up as a farmer or with farmers in the family, but it's very much the energy, like small town feel. And yeah, I've been here my entire life. I've left a few times to go travel and work on cruise ships. And I've always been someone that's really chased adventure. I've got a really adventurous soul, and I love travel and, like I said, adventure. And I just like having fun and bringing joy. I've definitely lived this life very unconventionally. Like I've found a way to get to 31 and living life literally the most unconventional that I could, and not even being aware that that's what I was doing. I just thought, like, I just always have followed my heart. And so I worked on cruise ships for a while, and that was a time in my life. I've backpacked. So I really grew up really valuing experiences. And I wasn't someone that, right out of high school, I was like, I'm going to go to university because this is what I want to do with my life. Like, I still don't know what I want to do with my life. And I've just really loved being able to see the world and meet people and different cultures and honestly just experience life. And that's definitely how I base a lot of my life. And things really changed in my life 5 years ago when I had my little guy. And prior to having my little guy, I was a heavy equipment operator for 5 years. Like, I ran a crushing plant and was working out in camp, and like loaders and dozers, like I was in a man's world. And when I had my little guy, a year after that, when my little guy was 14 months, I actually separated from my husband. And then the world went into lockdown. And when that journey started, I made a promise to myself, like I committed to myself, that I am going to allow myself to feel pleasure every single day. And I have no idea what that's going to look like or how that's going to feel or what that's going to transpire into. But amidst going through one of like the most stressful phases of my life, divorce, and then the world was upside down and I'm a single mom and like managing all of the things, business just like flatlined, and I'm just doing all these returns, and it was stressful. And I was like, I'm going to feel pleasure every single day, and I don't care what that looks like to the outside world. I had to have conversations with people to be like, I know it looks like I'm just playing right now, but that's what I need. Like, I made a point of feeling play and pleasure and really honoring myself while navigating divorce in a chaotic world, both for myself and my little guy. And it's...
Wow. Okay. Let's unpack a few of those things. So yeah. I did not know you worked on the cruise ship. That's super cool. We should talk about that later. Yeah. I love how positive you've been able to weave joy into your space, despite one of the biggest upheavals that people can go through, which is, first of all, starting a family, and then second, going through a divorce. We weren't planning on chatting about that, but I'm actually, if you're open to it, because it's been so helpful for me. Like, you've been such a big inspiration for me, specifically as somebody that's been involved with a broken family. My husband has children, and I've been in the role of a stepmother, and now kind of moving out of that role as we start to transition our life, which I haven't talked about on this podcast yet, but will hopefully in the future. When it's the right time. But I think just for me, Amy, you've been such an inspiration on what it looks like to go through a situation that's really, really painful and grieve that situation, but then come out on the other side with so much joy and so much reverence and respect for your previous partner, despite what may have happened. And the way that you weave that into your space with your son is like so beautiful. And so I just wanted to honor that, because I don't think that that's everyone's experience. And I also think it took a lot for you to get there. So I just appreciate so much that piece of you, like the motherhood piece of you, and being so respectful of having a family that's, a modern family, a family that's kind of unique. And in this day and age, not really unique. Most families are that, right? But I think you've done it in such a beautiful way. So I just want to honor that. And also, I love that you bring joy into the world. I love that you weave in this way and play in this way that is so just like unconventional, because when I first kind of got into a more space of like healing myself, I noticed that I was not able to play without having like that aspect of like seriousness. And I had to almost like unlearn some of those conventional beliefs of playing too small, because I wasn't playing enough. And so I just wanted to honor that too, because you've really been inspirational with your lifestyle. So thank you. Thank you for that inspiration and sharing that with the world. That brings me into like building the life that you love, right? And coming through some of those adversities and creating that space that brings you joy. What's been really powerful as a tool for you in building that space? And maybe how did you overcome some of those challenges that you faced when you were going through your separation and kind of stepping into this new motherhood, this new, parenting style?
Oh, thank you for sharing all of that. All of that. And it was super, super unconventional. And I had to work through a lot of fears and judgments. But what I did after a year and a half of going through separation, it was me and my little guy in the house. And I reached out to my parents because I was carrying everything. I reached out to my parents and I said, would it be okay if I rented out my house and Lewis and I moved home to the acreage? And my parents were like, yeah, sure. And the reason I did that was because my system was so overloaded. My nervous system was shot after the marriage and then the stress of everything. And I just knew that if I truly wanted to be the best mother that I could be while navigating all this, and if I really wanted to be able to sink into my feminine energy even deeper and really heal, that I needed to feel supported. And so I rented out my house, and my 2.5-year-old and I moved out to the house that I grew up in. And it's on 14 acres, so we have tons of nature to play. And that was me taking off the stress and the pressure of having, to pay all of the bills and to do everything, like literally everything. And it wasn't that I wasn't already doing everything, but it was like my system just needed a break from all of it, and I needed space to play, and I needed to feel supported. And so that was one of the biggest things that I did so that I could really dive deeper into myself. And little did I know that going home would also be like so healing for my inner child. Like even to go back home to the space and the land that I grew up on and have so much appreciation for everything around me and being like, shit, I didn't appreciate much or any of this when I grew up out here, right? Because it was just there, right? And so, and like I said too, like going out there, it took a lot of pressure off of me of having to constantly go and work, and being able to be the mom that I wanted to be for my little guy. And part of that was I wanted him to have like the least amount of trauma from this situation. And I was noticing early on, there were certain things that were happening that the only way I knew how to support him and myself was to actually feel supported in other ways and to give up that normal way of living and doing things and like just like bulldozing through life as a single mom, doing all the things so in my masculine. The only reason I knew how to change that was to actually allow myself to be supported and held, which was so new because Amy just always does everything on her own. Like Amy, I can do anything and everything. Like I'm like, I don't need anyone, but I desire others and I desire to be held and supported. So that was like a huge letting go. But that was really one of the starting points too, since being a mom.
Wow. Okay. So I can totally resonate with going back home and feeling really grateful, especially for a beautiful place that you grew up. I grew up on Cape Cod and lived a bunch of different places, and then ended up multiple years ago coming back like closer to home and coming back to my childhood home and seeing my parents and really spending time with them. And I started to realize like, oh my gosh, I grew up on Cape Cod with a private beach down the road and like a beautiful family home and a beautiful area. And I totally just took it all for granted because I didn't know. Like, you're a kid, you don't know. You're just like, yeah, this is where I live. and then going out and seeing some other parts of the world, I'm like, wow, I grew up in a really beautiful place, like one of the most beautiful places that I've ever been to. And it feels so good to feel that gratitude for something that feels such a big part of you. And so it's amazing that you've gotten to experience this beautiful 14-acre property and have this space while making that like that income on the side from a standpoint of, you know, renting your home, and being able to find more of that feminine energy, because you were talking about, I was in my masculine, my job was really masculine, I was working with masculine tools and plants and power plants or whatever it was that you mentioned. But it seems like it was so heavy and it was so like, it was a dense energy. And now you're, to me, you know, having just met you in this light energy, you feel very joyous and playful and very feminine. And so I kind of came into your life at a different stage. And I'm seeing you totally in your wild feminine, like completely there. And just honoring you in that space as a mother and as somebody who's been able to say, you know what, I need to be held right now. Like, how feminine is it to say, hey, I actually need to be held right now. I need to let go of control. I need to let go of, you know, all the things that I want to see happen and just let the universe respond to being held in a certain way. So that's so beautiful. I'm really glad that you did that, because it's brought you into my life, and now we've connected through specific circles and connections, and you've really just been devoted to this process of healing yourself. How did that start for you? Was it, hey, I'm going to go back home and I need to just get into play and stop working and like I need to heal? Or was it more organic than that, like, and layered? How did that happen for you?
It was totally organic. I'm glad you asked that, because I was like, oh, how was it? Honestly, it was totally organic. So one of the things that I realized while going through separation and divorce, and the world upside down, I was like, I need women. Like, I need to be around women. I need to be around people. And a couple sisters and I started talking, and the three of us were all feeling like we need people. And what actually happened, like, I was already on the healing journey, but what happened was two sisters and I, we actually all came together and we started hosting women's circles. And it was out of a need of what all of us were needing, right? And for me, it was like, I was always with the boys. I was in a man's industry. Like, I have like my girlfriends, but not like you would in high school or something, right? Like things change as you get older. And so we started hosting women's circles. We started out as men and women, and then we transferred just to women's circles. And we would send out personal invites to women to join us in circle. And we would do cacao ceremony, crystal singing bowls, and ecstatic dance. And we did it once a month for 24 months, the three of us. And what I didn't realize how desperately I needed community and desired community. I didn't know how much like my body just needed space to move and release like the grief and the sadness and the heartache and everything that comes. And also like the shift of becoming a mother. Like, that's a freaking initiation. That is just like, hey, pop out a kid, you're good. Back to like the way things were. It's like, doesn't work that way. Right. So I had this every month I had this beautiful circle that was just waiting for me. And I looked forward to it every single month of being in community, meditation, cacao, and ecstatic dance. And I literally tell people now, like, I danced my way through divorce. Like, that is the one thing that every single month I had to look forward to. And growing up, I was not a dancer. Like, you would not see Amy on the dance floor. I would have friends, like, we'd be out at the bar and, you know, even like Amy annihilated, like, I don't really drink anymore, but I would be annihilated and friends would literally have to pull me onto the dance floor. Like my one girlfriend, she's like, it literally was like pulling teeth getting you to dance. And I was going dancing every single month, sober, in a room full of women. And it was the best. Like I felt so free. I felt so in my body. I'd leave and I'd just be completely ecstatic. My energy was shifted. And it was just this somatic experience to just feel everything that was going on in my body. And like, what a beautiful way to express and release. Which ultimately led to, after 24 months, the three of us branched off to do our own stuff. And now I host my own ecstatic dance. Like it's been over a year now that I've been on my own hosting circles. And so how it's all happened has been totally organic. Even people coming into my life like at the most divine time with like this next step or this next thing. And it's just been this beautiful unraveling.
Hello, sacred humans. Quickly, I want to share with you something I've added into my daily rituals that has me buzzing, and that is Rise Mushroom Coffee. Rise entered my life through my Instagram algorithm that obviously knows what products I like, and I gave it a try and just wow, it has amazingly delicious flavor. Not only this, they also have a mushroom matcha powder. Mind blown. And they're filled with superfoods and super mushrooms. What I like about Rise is that they use 100% organic ingredients, and their mushroom farms are located in California. If you've always wanted to try mushroom coffee but haven't yet pulled the trigger, this is your moment. And there is zero risk because they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're interested in the deliciousness of Rise mushroom elixirs, head to the show notes and you will find a link for 20% off your first order. Or simply use the discount code Jessica, all caps, at checkout. That's JESSICA, all caps, at checkout. And now, let's get back to our amazing episode of the Seikird Healing Podcast. Wow. So just to kind of double click on some things you just touched on. You talked about your women's circles. You talked about needing sisterhood and community with women. I have talked to a lot of women in my life throughout the years, and it seems like women go through this, like, and not all women, so I won't like stereotype it, but it seems like from a feminine energy perspective, we go through this like period of our life where we're kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing. How can I numb? How alcohol, whatever your pick your poison, right? Like we go through this period of we don't have elders being able to usher us right now into what it means to prepare for the mental journey of going into queendom or into motherhood or even just into adulthood. And so when you talk about like, oh, Amy on the dance floor, like Amy on the dance floor was not the Amy that's here now on the new dance floor of life, right? And so I just want to honor that you had to go through that journey, as many of us have in this generation. And I'm hoping that we can all usher in a new generation of what that could look like, because I think it can be more beautiful if we get back to those ancestral roots of ushering in from an elder perspective. Not that we're elders yet, but like ushering in the new wave of children and the new wave of what we want this world to look like. And when you go through that, you went through your own initiation, right? But then you came out of it and you said, wow, like I became a mother and society expected me to just go right back to everything that I was doing previously. And I'm so happy that you took a stand and said, no, I need help. I need to be held. And I also I want motherhood to look like something else, something more beautiful. And then in that you said, I need my sisters around me. And I think for a lot of women out there, they can have sister wounds, like big, deep sister wounds. And so it could be hard for that to happen. Like it can be hard for people to ask for that community. Myself included. It's been really hard for me to heal some sister wound trauma. But I love that you got together with others, like fellow women, and said, hey, we can bring something really magical into the world, and we can just help our community And then it became something bigger where now you're sprouting out, and it's really like a ripple effect of how you're impacting your community that impacts the world and the greater space, and how important that is for us to weave that and to do our part, really. Like, if everyone is doing their part, then we can create this like beautiful, beautiful world. So I just wanted to honor that and thank you for leading these women's circles. I want to double click on that. What do those women's circles look like? You mentioned ecstatic dance. You mentioned cacao. What does that look like? Is it virtual? Do you do them in person? What does that service look like?
First of all, I love how you mentioned the sister wound and how it's hard for a lot of women to step into that space. I was that woman too. And I think the hardest part for women is knowing that they're actually worthy of being able to step into a space of women that is safe and to cultivate sisterhood. That is the hardest thing, is like choosing that first one. So women's circles, I do everything in person. At the start of, the world going crazy, I was very pushed, like, go online. No one wants anything in person. Like, go online. And in my heart, I knew that I needed to do in person. Like, I needed human connection. I needed to feel women. I needed to be next to them. Like, I needed to feel people. And so everything in person. I've done a couple online classes and stuff, but like the bread and butter is in-person women's circles, and had anywhere from like 10 women to 33 was our biggest circle, which was amazing. And, we come in and it's beautiful too, because there's been so many women where they're like, you invite me every month. And like 6 months to a year later, they finally come to their first one. And they're like, I wish I wouldn't have waited so long. Like, what took me so long? Right? Which is completely normal. And then it really turned into, we had some women where like that was their monthly get out. That was their every month, like they were coming. We had one woman, she started coming. She wasn't pregnant. She got pregnant. She came to every month with her, like during her pregnancy, up until she gave birth. And then like 2 months later, she was bringing baby. And it was this beautiful thing to witness of like, we got to hold her while she was like in that prime, creating that baby and dancing with baby. And then to be able to bring baby like earthside to ceremony was really special too. But yeah, all of my stuff really is in person. And I just felt in a world where there's so much disconnection, and we've got screens and all of the stuff, like we need to be in person and actually connecting and relating in person. And so we sit in a circle, and my favorite part is I very much the space holder. And so women coming in, and I was always the one greeting them at the door with like a big smile, and I'm so excited to see you, and just like the best hugs. Like that's probably one of my favorite parts. And just seeing women light up as they walk into the room, and we'd have rose petals on the ground, and just like they'd love like all the little details. And so just really making it really special and a space for the women to just like be held in beauty. And then we'd sink into a cacao ceremony, which is like a light meditation, really sinking into our hearts. We'd always have a sharing circle. So it's like, what's alive with you? What are you feeling? Whether, it's happiness and joy, or you're feeling grief, like there's nothing that's off the table. And it's beautiful because every circle, there's a theme. And the women that show up, like there's a reason the women that show up each circle, like who shows up and who drops out last minute and then who steps in last minute, right? There's always a theme. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about women coming into circle and sharing and speaking, is realizing that they're not alone. Like there's so much in this world where it's like, oh, can't say that I'm going through this, can't say that I'm struggling with my relationship with my mother, can't say that I'm fighting with my husband, can't say that I'm just overwhelmed with being a mother. And we hold it all in, which just creates chaos and turmoil in our body. But stepping into a circle with 10, 15, 30 women, and realizing that every single woman is dealing with the exact same emotions on some level, maybe not the exact same situation or experience, but in one way or another. And witnessing women, like the healing and the connections and the friendships that have come just from women sitting across from each other in circle and being like, oh my gosh, like I see you. Right? That's been really beautiful. And then we do a static dance. So make a playlist that's like 50 minutes to an hour long, and it's just moving your body exactly how you want. We howl, we freaking, like whatever needs to move through your body, we honor that. And in my newest space, like I've got it set up like a club. So we've got a disco ball in the middle, and it's very like clubby vibes, but safe and pretty and delicate and just fun. Yeah.
Wow. So I had the unique opportunity to do a women's circle with you. We were in it together. It wasn't one that you led, but we were near each other, and I felt your energy, and I just felt you holding the space. And when you mentioned like the flower petals and everything, it brought me back to the women's circle that we did together. And everything you're saying sounds so beautiful. I'm such a big fan of ecstatic dance. And as you know, I'm a breathwork facilitator, and you being an ecstatic dance facilitator, they're very similar in many ways because they allow energy to come out of your body somatically and in a release that is really physical and emotional on many, many different levels. And, you know, through breathwork and through ecstatic dance, both really great healing modalities, you can experience such big, powerful releases of just trauma leaving your body. And it's so, so, so powerful. So I can't wait to experience one of your ecstatic dances in the future because it sounds so wonderful. Speaking of ecstatic dance and howling and, you know, getting into the wildness of being a woman, can we talk about the wild feminine for a moment? Because I know that you're very devoted to wild feminine. So I want to chat with you about that. What does that mean for you? I don't want it to sound like a buzzword because it might be a buzzword out there, but I think that there is a true wild nature to a feminine energy, like a Kali energy, the woman just like being in their fullness and being able to like fully express. So I'm curious what that means for you and what you've done through dance and other modalities to extend that into your life.
I feel like this is ever changing and evolving as I like shift and evolve and grow. And like at one point, the wild feminine, like, you know, was just like doing her own thing. Right. But as it like evolves, it's like a woman that just has the capacity to stand in her power, unwavering, and hold her own. And it's like she can experience, like, she makes the mundane beautiful. Right. And she's bright and she's airy and she's love and she's fun and she's empathetic and she's caring. But she's got her shadow, she's got her anger, she's got her rage, and she allows herself to hold it all and to feel it all, like to be it all. I think there's so much in society where it's like, you can't be angry, you need to be the good girl. It's women don't express anger, you know, you just sit down and shut up and be good. And it's like, absolutely not. Like that was me for so many years. And all it did was create like this hard, rigid, like resentful and bitterness within myself. And as I've like really stepped into Amy and seeing some of my shadows as like my biggest gifts, right? Like some people will see me as arrogant, but really I'm just confident, right? And I think really being able to soften like myself so that it does come across as softer, but still like that hard like anchor. And I think she allows herself to express in all the moments, right? It's like she knows who she is, and she gives herself space to play and feel pleasure, right? I think we live in a world too where it's like the woman can't feel pleasure. The only way a woman can feel pleasure, like you need to get that from a man, where it's like, heck no, like I get to feel and create my own pleasure, right? There's so much I think that I feel that, and even in myself, that I've had to outsource or been told like, I need to get that from you. I need to get that from him. If I don't have him like a man, then it's like, who am I, right? And for me, it's like when we actually bring that, all of that power and that energy back into ourselves and turn that mirror around, it's like, who am I? Right? And we start to tap into our own intuition and our own power and listening to our heart, following our hearts, following our guts, right? And giving ourselves the space when we need it, and then the community when we need it. I think she's just unapologetically like her. And it's like, there's nothing, she can still crumble, but it's like, there's nothing that can actually break her. I've had so many moments where it's like, that could have crushed me. And I've seen people and it like can feel it when they're like, how did she make it through that? And it's like, I've always been able to alchemize it. Like turning that pain and that heartache into absolute beauty. Yeah.
Woo.
And it'll probably shift even more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That was so beautifully said. Alchemizing pain into beauty. And it actually leads me into another topic that I wanted to chat with you about, which is weaving all of that into art. And I think that you've been really, at least for me, inspirational in how you've shared your art and how you've used art as a creative outlet to release some of that pain and turn it into something so beautiful. And you've started to share more of your art on your social media and other platforms. And it's been so beautiful to witness. So I wanted to chat with you about your art real quick and kind of how did you start getting into creative outlets like painting? How did you get over the fear of, what if I share this and people don't resonate with it? What did that look like for you? Because we talk about the wild feminine, we talk about being unapologetically just like but then there's always that like voice in the back of your head that's like, what if I share this and people don't resonate? What if I share this and people come after me? What if I share my heart and I'm not enough? Right? So there's always that voice, at least for me. So how did you get started creating art, and what did that look like for you? Because your paintings are absolutely beautiful. And so I just wanted to kind of touch on that, because it's another outlet, like similar to dance, right? It's a creative way to release onto paper. So I wanted to touch on that with you.
Oh, thank you. I love creating art, and I was the girl growing up. Like I was the kid with the art caddy. Like I had all the art supplies, I had all the paints, I had all the brushes, I had clay, like I had all of the things. I was the art kid. And for Christmas, like I would often do handmade things. You know, one year I made the whole family like stockings, and that was like the Christmas present. It was like these beautiful stockings with like glitter and like poinsettias and just different things. Like I was always the art girl. But I also always believed, or part of me believed, that like you couldn't make a living or just do art, right? It's like there was something about it where it was like, you need to like get a real job, you need to do a real thing. Or it's like, I think at one point too, it's like my creativity was just really sucked out of me. And to be honest, I don't know that I have like that one moment where I remember that happening. But even like I love to like redo furniture, you know, and reupholster and stuff like that. So always had very like much creative outlets. But recently, what actually got me into the painting, I guess it was my first Christmas actually where Lewis wasn't with me after separation. And I had picked him up this little like Tetra Paint art kit for him to paint with and do art. And he wasn't home, and I was like, something pulled me to just grab a canvas And it was like, you need to play with Lewis's art paints that you just got him for Christmas that you haven't even given to him yet. And so I was sitting in the living room at a chair and table, and I just started doing, and it was like little kid swirls and tightness, and it was just like, it was almost like this angel that was in it. And what I realized was I was actually painting grief.
Today, I want to share with you all the delicious cacao with a K drinking chocolate. Cacao is one of my favorite brands of ceremonial grade cacao and is a delicious addition to my morning routine. Cacao is jam-packed with delicious nutrients that work with my body to stay energized, connected, and focused. What I also love about cacao is that they are a nonprofit on a mission to protect the native heirloom strands of cacao in both Peru and Guatemala by giving back to the farmers and communities that make it available to us. If you are interested in cacao with a K, go to the show notes and you will find a link for 10% off your first order, or simply by using the discount code Jessica, all caps, at checkout. That's JESSICA, all capital letters, at checkout.
And I was in such a space of missing my little boy for the first Christmas, and really just like in the thick of it. And it was when we were still at our house, so I wasn't out at the acreage yet. And yeah, I was like, I just need to paint grief. And so that was the first thing that I had painted. So that was about like, gosh, almost 4 years ago. And then I really didn't paint much for the next year. And then the following Christmas, I did a little mushroom journey with my brother. And one point I was just like, I need to go paint. And I realized after I had done this painting that it was exactly 1 year from when I had done the other one, when Lou was with his dad for Christmas, and he was with his dad for Christmas again. And it was me painting grief again. And I took these two paintings after and I put them side by side. And I was like, I used the exact same colors in both of the paintings. And in the first one that I had painted grief for the first time, it was very tight and condensed and like really like contracted, and everything was like really tightly done. And this next one, there was a little bit more space and it was a bit more flowy. And I realized even the state of where I was in that first painting of grief to this one, it wasn't as heavy. It was still there. It was really hard, but I felt more okay with it. And so I had painted those two pictures of painting grief. And then we had got back from Texas. It was after Texas of this year. And I had done a water fast. Like my week after, I was like, I'm going to do a 4-day water fast. Lou was with his dad, and I got pulled to pull out my paints. And it was like, I could take all of this space that I have and go connect with a friend or go do this or go do that. But it was like, no, you just need to be with you. And so I painted. And after I looked at this picture, and I was in a great space at this point, like in a good space. And I looked at this painting after, and I put it by my other two paintings. And I was like, I used the same colors again. And the layout of them was very similar, but this one was totally open and airy. And so, and it was, yeah, and it was very similar. And it just realized like so much of that grief had actually left my body. Like there's still that sadness and those feelings, those hard moments, but it was like, and so now I have these 3 pictures of like grief, deepen it, softening, and then like, whoa, like this is fun, and there's pleasure, and there's joy, and there's all of this weaved in. And it was really powerful. I'll actually have to send you a photo of the 3 pictures.
Yes, please send me the photo of the 3 pictures. And I just want to point out that there are no coincidences in this life. There are only synchronicities. And so the fact that you painted one year and then one exactly a year later to date, and then pieced together that process of grief, there's like no coincidence there. And then the third painting is almost like, okay, now I'm opening and I'm softening into this. And what a really cool like healing tool for people that might be processing any type of grief. Just get out a canvas, get out a paintbrush, and you don't have to be a professional artist or even like an artist at all. Just getting that out on paper is
absolutely
so important.
Yeah. And I think that's the hardest thing too. It's like, we don't even let ourselves start. There's so many judgments of like, oh, I'm not an artist, I'm not this, I'm not that. But it's like your creativity and moving and expressing whatever wants to be expressed through your body matters and is art. Right. And so that water fast actually like opened up the art part of me. And I think I painted like 2 or 3 more paintings that weekend. And then I just got the ping and it was like, look on Facebook Marketplace for an easel. Like, you need an easel because you're meant to be doing big canvases, like big ones. And so I looked and I found like this beautiful easel, solid wood on wheels for $50. It had just been posted. So I was like, my dad was in the city. I was like, can you pick this up, please? And he was like, yeah, sure. And then I just picked up some canvases. And what I've noticed, each painting that I've done, I can actually go back and actually tell you what I was expressing and feeling going through each one. And so it really just, the next grief that I painted, actually, I didn't know. I often don't know what I'm painting. Like, I just open up a canvas and I start going. And I was pulled to do 2 angel wings. And I was like, why angel wings? Like, what am I going to do with these? And I do some art and then I put it away and then I pick it up. And next thing you know, these angel wings are like pink and they're glittery and all this stuff. And it dropped in. It was like, that was the miscarriage. And it's like her coming through. And so all of the art that I've created has been like in a space of huge transformation. Some grief, some is just acceptance. Some is, I've done a couple where it's like really embodying that wild feminine. Like, I love to paint naked. That's like one of my favorite things. And just like bringing that feminine essence in. And I've done some where, you know, I don't know if you've seen my rose one recently. And like that one, I listened to Rose by Isla Schaefer the whole time. I used rose hip infused water for the water. And it just really, you know, it's just whatever comes through. I just intuitively listen to like what wants to be painted, how I do the strokes. And I had no intention of sharing any of my art, to be quite honest. Like, I was like, these are really personal. They feel like they're for me. But there was something with it where it was like, no, you actually need to share this art with the world because they're powerful. And there's this part where like, I know that they're powerful and they feel powerful to me. But I had a couple friends see them like, excuse me, like, that's powerful. And so I was like, okay. So I kind of just post it, and I go through phases where I don't. I haven't posted art in a while. So it's like, if there's one that I feel really good about, or it's like, you need to just share this, then I will. But I tend to not share it just to like put out a piece of art. Like, it has to feel complete in my body, and ready to share. And honestly, I don't care what people think.
Yeah. And it feels like, you know, when you share, you're so intuitive. You're almost getting like this sign or this like call to share. You're not just sharing to share. You're sharing because you're like, oh, this is like really aligned for me right now. And somebody could benefit from me sharing this art. And it also seems like you are really in tune when you're in that space. And so for anyone listening that's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could ever do that. I don't know if I could get to that space where I know what to paint or what to do or where to start. It seems like you're very much like, I'm in my own world. I'm going to shut the doors. I'm going to put the music on that I really like, and I'm just going to go. And so I would encourage everyone to give it a try, because it sounds so magical and also like very peaceful and meditative to be kind of just by yourself and getting that time. And it's like, you know, it does take time to set up to start doing art, right? Like, it takes time to get the canvas, get the paints, get all the things. But it's as simple as a piece of paper and a pen. A piece of paper and a pencil, right? So I just want to like encourage that too. Yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be this big extravagant thing. It can be so simple to utilize.
One of the things actually that pulled me to the painting as well was while being home with my little guy, it was like, what's something that I can do each day or in a moment where I can just like sneak something in that's just for me. It's like, I can't always sneak away and go meditate for 5-10 minutes because Lou's going to be coming running in, mom, mom, mom. Do you know what I mean? But it was like, okay, if we're sitting here and he's playing with his trains or he wants to paint or do art, I can do it with him. Right? So my art space is actually set up in a corner. I put my plunge pool outside and I made it my art space. And that was one of the biggest shifts too. It was like, how can I do something each day or have it just open and available, even while I'm in the middle of momming, that I can just like do that for me. And so now we actually have days where Lou's like, Mommy, I just want to paint. And I'll set him up on the floor and he'll paint there and I'll help him. And I can do a few like on my canvas. And so I think it's really that perspective shift too. And like making it accessible so that you will actually do it.
Absolutely. Accessibility is huge, especially for working moms, busy moms, like even stay-at-home moms that are like so overwhelmed. What can you do to bring in that little piece, right? And set it up so that you get time in this meditative state, but then also your kid or kids are taken care of too. And when kids see their parents in those states, they feel good. Like to see their parents like stressed and running around and not able to just sit and have a moment, that's really hard for a kid to see. And it's really nice for kids to be able to see their parents in just like full reverence for a task and being able to express what is living in the body and let it out. And that's really, really beautiful. And thank you for sharing that piece about motherhood because it's so important. So important.
I think that's one of the greatest lessons too. It's like, just sit back and watch your kids and let your kids actually lead you. Right? Like you said earlier, it's as simple as a piece of paper. Like Lewis will always say, Mommy, I want to color, I want to draw. And literally he just needs a piece of paper, a highlighter and a pencil, and he's happy. Right? So it's like, if we actually like follow our littles too in moments where it's like, it really can be that simple and easy.
Yeah, they don't put pressure on it. We put pressure on it, right? They're like, no, I want a pencil, please. Like, can I have a cool eraser too? Like, that'd be great. Like, they don't care, right?
Exactly.
Can I get some markers? Like, it's so simple. It doesn't have to be so elaborate. So, yeah, thank you for adding that. For those of you who don't already know, my husband and I own a coffee company called Gay Head Coffee. And of course, we drink our own coffee every day, and it's some of the most flavorful and inviting coffee, especially with the nostalgia of coming from a can rather than paper or plastic packaging. But I'm biased, so check it out for yourself. If you're interested, head over to the show notes where you will find a link to order your coffee today from gayheadcoffee.com. That's GAYHEADCOFFEE.com. Thank you all for your support. It means the world to us as a small business. One thing I want to touch on too, kind of bringing everything full circle, you've been able to step into this feminine space where you make other women or you create spaces and hold space where other women are able to feel safe in their magic and in their power and able to really like recognize themselves and like remember who they are to their core. I'm assuming it wasn't always that way for you. How did you weave into that container of being able to hold space, not just for women, but for men too? Because I've seen you weave through spaces and you do hold space for people, literally. And I know you host women's circles and you've gotten into that, but how do you weave that magic for allowing people to feel safe in their power?
I didn't realize it until about a month ago. After breathwork in Texas, actually. Why this was just such a natural part of me. And what I realized and what came through, I'm getting full body chills as this is coming up, but I navigated and walked through most, my life feeling unsafe and always having to protect myself. And I didn't realize that for 25 years of my life, I walked around this earth feeling unsafe. And I never wanted anybody else to feel that. And honestly, I could never really connect the dots as to why, but I was able to get to that root space. And what that actually taught me was feeling so unsafe with an incident early on in life was I knew what it felt like to not feel safe within my body. And so I knew no matter where I was in the world, despite not feeling safe in the world at large, I was okay because I knew what it felt like to not feel safe and I could always navigate. And what I didn't realize too was that I actually had trauma. I didn't realize some of the little things in life that I just brushed off was actually trauma. And so I have just always wanted other people to feel safe and to feel good because I knew what it felt like to not feel safe. And so I think it's just this natural thing that I've navigated my whole life with, of even if I see someone where they feel off or not safe, like I will be that person to go approach them and have a conversation. Right? Because I never wanted to be that person, and I knew how it felt to not feel safe or not feel good. And I think it's just a natural part of me. And I've always, I often joke and say gosh, universe, can you just pay me to be a walking therapist? Because I feel like everywhere I go, people just naturally open up to me. They share it to me. And I love that, because then I really get to see a person and know a person. And I think that's why I have the ability to have, why I have so many beautiful connections in my life that are really deep. And then just over time, I believe too, it's my experiences that I've put myself through. And then allowing myself to do some of the healing work and to really dive deep, and to put myself in the spaces to be held, to do my own work as well, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. What's been the most powerful for you in terms of healing modalities? Because you've dabbled in a lot of different types of healing. You just mentioned breathwork, you've mentioned dance, you've mentioned art, you've mentioned all these forms of release, women's circles, cacao. What's been the most profound for you? And when did you have the most profound shift? And could you share a little bit about that?
Oh my goodness. I've had just for me to pick just one right now in this moment, what's popping is breathwork in Texas in July. Absolutely blew my mind in so many ways and took me to a place and a space that I didn't know how deep my breath could take me, in a space where I felt fully safe and fully held. And I came home from Texas in July feeling so naked and so bare, and all of my armor and my shield and my protection mechanisms had all just dissolved. And I had never felt so exposed. I came home from just absolutely bare. And I had been doing a lot of heart work. A lot of my journey has been on trust and heart work. Open your heart and follow, trust yourself and open your heart. And it's been beautiful. But damn, breathwork in Texas rocked my freaking world. And I've had, yeah.
I was just going to say, it was such an honor to do breathwork with you. Even just to be in the same space was so beautiful. And I love hearing about breathwork transformations. It makes me so happy to be in the space. And hearing people's transformations is what I live for. It is why I do what I do. And just being in that arena with you, I'll call it an arena, because I went through a really, really powerful transformation myself too. It was one of the most powerful breathwork ceremonies to date. So powerful. So thank you for sharing that. And if I could go a little deeper on that, what were you seeing in your breathwork? Was it like more visions? Was a trauma being released, or like what did your release look like? I guess is my question. What did your release look like? And what were you seeing? Like, what were some of the things that came to you as insights?
Yeah, so with my breathwork journeys, I don't so much see in my breathwork, but it's full body for me. And what I didn't, realize till after, when I was like, what was this? And then it just drops in, and it was really about going back to feeling safe. That was something I had been working through prior to going to Texas. And in breathwork, it actually brought me back to like that moment of not feeling safe, and like releasing that feeling of not feeling safe, and really allowing myself to feel it. And then also allowing myself to feel what I needed in that moment when I didn't get it years ago. And we were in the same session. So I imagine you saw me at the front, just uncontrollably like sobbing and just releasing and letting go. And I just remember like tears coming from like the tips of my toes and like the depth of my womb space and my heart. And I just looked at Caitlin at one point, and she came over and she just held me. And it was like she touched my face, and these tears just like uncontrollably, like she held my arm, she just held me. And what I realized in that moment was how I had never like been held or just received with no strings attached, like unconditionally from the feminine. And I didn't realize how badly I needed that. And that was like the first time that I can actually recall in my life of getting that just unconditional love, no strings attached or expectations from the feminine. And it rocked my freaking world.
Oh my gosh. And huge shout out to our friend Caitlin, mentor, queen, beautiful, beautiful, just woman weaving her magic into the world. So yeah, just quick shout out to Caitlin. We love her. And yeah, it when you say unconditional love, it just brings me to the breathwork ceremonies that I've facilitated and that I've been a part of. And it is that, like that feeling of like, there's no exchange here. Like, I don't need to give something back. I'm just receiving. It's like in full receive mode without having to be anything or be a specific way or be something for somebody. You just are you, and you're getting that full unconditional love. And I haven't felt that really in any other experience other than breathwork. Yeah.
And it's true. I've sat with Bufo and some other medicine where I've really felt that, but not where it was like all me. But the other really beautiful thing that I received from that session, that breathwork session, was I got to receive what that felt like, but it was also very like clearly dropped in that it's like, that's what you so freely give to others. It was like, that's what others feel when they're in your energy, when you're with them and when you hold them. And I was like, holy fuck.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's coming back to what we talked about earlier, being able to hold space for women and allow them to feel really safe and powerful in their own magic. And that's what your friendship has given me. So I'm so grateful for that. And then to be able to know that you've received that too is so beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
I adore you. Thank you.
I literally adore you. So I want to weave this into kind of the more beautiful space and world that we want to see. And you've taken all of these insights and all of these things that you've been cultivating over the past couple of years, And you've felt this call recently in some of our conversations that you want to weave this more into the aspect of leadership. And I want to hear more about that, because I think it's so important that we don't hold all this information in. Like, these insights are powerful, and they're powerful to integrate, but once they're integrated and alchemized, we have a sacred responsibility to share. And you've confided in me recently that you are wanting to get more into, call it corporate world, call it whatever you want, but more into sharing in a leadership capacity, where you can now take all of these weavings and bring them into a space where doesn't really have access to them, may be defiant in hearing about them, but it's right in your heart to try and weave that, because it's so important for the greater good of humanity and the world, and the world that you want to see. So thank you for stepping into that and hearing that calling and following that gut response. I want to hear why from you. Like, what is your why there? What was that calling? How did you receive that? And what does that look like? What does that weaving look like?
Yeah, I've always been and found myself in a space of leadership. No matter where I've been, what job I've been in, I've always been just naturally a leader. And in the same sentence, I've never seen myself as a leader.
Yeah, girl. Get it.
Because it's just naturally like who I am and how I show up. And I've been a leader in the community for the last 3-4 years, like with the women's circles and everything, and in different spaces. And I've always seen myself in a space of leadership that I haven't quite felt yet. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like everything I've done is leading up to something, and I have no idea what it's going to look like. But like I did mention to you not too long ago, there's something in me that's really getting pulled to the corporate world. And I am someone who has never, ever been in the corporate world. I grew up with self-employed families. Like I said before, like I've done life as unconventionally as I possibly could.
You might change your mind when you get into the corporate world.
Right?
I'm kidding. Go full in.
Yeah. And it's like, I think that before you'd look at me and someone would like invite me in or something about like corporate world, I'd be like, heck no. But recently I've been getting this really strong vision, this hearing, just this knowing that I'm meant to go out into the corporate world. And I don't know what it's going to look like fully, or how it's going to transpire, or what the full reasoning is, but I'm just trusting the nudges and the pulls. But what was very clear is that spirituality is one thing. And, you can be spiritual, you can do all the work, you can do the breath work, you can do the plant medicines, you can do the women's circles and all of that. But that's really just keeping, it's kept me in the spiritual world and not really branched out. And to be quite honest, I haven't had to. But recently, it's, like you said, sacred responsibility to actually be sharing what I know and bringing my energy into a world where this is non-existent, where they really don't know much about it, or it's not accepted, it's not okay, it's seen as woo-woo. And so part of me was like, oh, going into the corporate world and doing like retreats or workshops or circles for the women, circles for the men, whatever that looks like. And I actually mentioned this to a friend the other day, or a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I'm getting pulled to be in the corporate world, and he's in the corporate world. He's in commercial real estate. And a couple of weeks later, there was a job opening actually. And he was like, you should apply for this. And I was like, this is actually since we talked, Jess. And I was like, I don't know, but I'm like, I did put it out there. And so the HR lady actually reached out to me. And the crazy thing is, I've had one job interview in my entire life, 12 years ago when I worked on cruise ships. I've always been approached for my jobs. So for the first sign, it was like they approached me. So it was like, okay. I went for a job interview yesterday. I don't even know if you know this yet. Went for a job interview yesterday and it was great. I left feeling like I could go work there. Like I could work with these people. And when she read my resume, because it's kind of all over the place, she was like, what does this mean? Like, I don't even know what some of these words mean. And I was like, do you want me to explain? And she's like, yeah, I do. And so I did, and it was really beautiful, and it opened up this conversation. And I'll know by Thursday if I have a job in the corporate world. But yeah, for me, it's, and still being able to do what I do. But for me, it's really like, yeah, spiritual, I have all these tools, all these tips, all these tricks, all these ways of supporting others. Even just my energy, like when my energy walks in, when I walk into a room, my energy changes the whole room. And I know that, right? And it's like accepting all of those parts and those pieces. And it's like, whoa, it's like going in as like a stabilizer or a neutralizer, right? And just to be able to hold people in a new way in their world. So we'll see what happens and what transpires from that. But
we'll see what happens when witchy women come into the corporate space and start fucking shit up.
Right? I'm so excited though, like for whatever that's going to look like.
Yeah.
I think one of the things too that I've talked with a few men that are in the corporate world that are actually stepping out of the corporate world. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people like my spiritual friends, they're all stepping out and I'm getting pulled in. I'm like, what is going on? And what I actually realized and what kind of came through was there's men that are leaving the corporate world and they're going out and they're building structures and they're building the foundations of new, right? With healthy masculine. And I was like, okay, so they're leaving, but they're going to build and they are building. And it's like, I'm getting pulled in as a feminine to these old masculine structures that are already there to shift. And so I honestly don't know what's going on fully, but there's something.
I really love it though. I love that juxtaposition and that like polarity of what's happening within those masculine and feminine energies. And I also love that, you know, and we say this all the time. It's like, you can't lead a horse to water. You can't drag anyone to the altar, but you can weave into spaces and people are going to say, damn, I want some of what she's eating, what she's smoking, what she's cooking, because it makes me feel really good inside. And so I think that when you enter those spaces, that's what you're going to bring to the space. You're going to have heads turning to say like, oh man, like, what is she doing? Like, and how can I get some of that? Because that's some good energy. And when you and I first met, this is like so funny because it's such a vivid thing for me, because when I was growing up, I loved the movie Practical Magic with Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock. And you totally reminded me of Nicole Kidman in that role, like the old school Nicole Kidman in Practical Magic. And I was like, oh my God, who is this person? And I like kept wanting to call you Nicole, but I was like, no, you're Amy. But like you had that like magic, and just like the name of that movie is Practical Magic. Like you had that magic feeling to you, that witchy feeling to you, but in a way where you can hold down some space, but you're wild. And also you're able to kind of like tame that masculine that wants so dearly to be tamed. And so I'm so excited to see what you can weave. And even if it's just like dropping seeds, planting seeds, because in our lifetime, like some of this masculine energy that's portrayed itself in a shadow form, some of that won't be healed in our lifetime. And that's okay. But when you plant seeds, trees will grow and the future will be able to reap the benefits of that. And so I just honor what you're doing, because I think it's work that, as you said, people in certain spiritual circles are stepping out of that space. They're like, I can't do this anymore. I got to get out of here because I want more of the spiritual community. But you're saying, no, we need to lean in, because the more we divide, the more poles we create, and the more defiance we'll have, and the more misunderstanding we'll have, and the more that people will be disconnected from each other and from themselves. So just wanted to honor that you're doing that and that you're leaning into that gut feeling because it's cool. I
It's
think it's cool.
cool. It's
I think
cool
it's
and
cool.
it's scary. Yeah. And that was another thing that we had touched on briefly too, was like, I know a lot of spiritual people that cannot function in the real world. I know a lot of spiritual people that cannot function here in this 3D world. They are so up here, they're not here. Whereas I think the ones, that where we have the ability to be and function, that we actually, like you said before, like sacred responsibility to go out and to share that with the world and to show them another way. And like you said, weave. And I might not be able to see it in this lifetime. You might not be able to see it in this lifetime. My little guy might not be able to see all the changes in this lifetime, but just knowing that like each step is one step closer to creating that more beautiful world that is here when we choose it, right?
Yeah, and our children and our children's children and their children's children will thank us for that in the future because we're building that foundation. And the foundation's already been started. We're just
Absolutely
weaving through it. So if people want to find your services, your circles, most of what you're doing is in person. So if there's people in Canada that are listening that want to find their way to Amy, or if there's people in the US that are listening or any other country, I don't know if any other country is listening besides Canada and US, but if you are, hi, welcome. If anyone wants to find their way to one of your women's circles, or find their way to an ecstatic dance, how would they go about doing that? What do you have? A website, social media? Where can people best find you?
Yeah, so honestly, Instagram's the best one. And my Instagram's I am Amy Ellsworth, and I share all my stuff on there. I used to have a website, and I was like, I'm just gonna stick to Instagram right now. And a lot of my stuff too, I share it on Instagram, and then we do like personal invites to women, which is always really special. But yeah, that's where I am.
Oh, amazing. So I'll link that out in the show notes for everyone to be able to find you. And before we jump off, like, what's next for Amy? I mean, you've got this, like, I feel like we're on a cliffhanger right now. I feel like we're gonna have to get you back on in like 6 months and see what's going on because it's like total cliffhanger. You're like, yeah, I'll find out in a couple of days if I'm going into the corporate space and able to like weave some magic there. So total cliffhanger. But yeah, I guess I don't need to ask you what's next because we don't know.
Honestly, I have no idea, and I know what it feels like, but to be able to see it like concrete here in the world, I have no idea what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to keep showing up as Amy. Pleasure, joy, fun, tea dates, nature. I'm going to anticipate a call from this company. Tomorrow they're going to call me. So we'll be off the cliff tomorrow, but where that will lead to, I have no idea. It's always this or something better, right?
Oh, this or something better. Yeah. Wow.
Always.
Well, thank you so much for building a life that you love, because you building that life that you love and others being able to witness you in that space is more inspirational than anything else you could ever possibly do. Thank you for being a really good mother. Thank you for weaving goodness into the relationship with not only your little guy, but also your ex. I think it's so important that you've kept such a communicative and respectful relationship, even going through deep, deep grief, because some women have struggled with that and it might come out in different ways and more angry. And so I just want to honor that you've been so beautiful to witness as a mother, and weaving in that relationship and allowing your little boy to have a beautiful, beautiful view of what it looks like to have high emotional intelligence and still fully be devoted to expressing in the wildest form that you possibly could. Thank you for sharing your art with the world. Thank you for being you. Thank you for holding space for me, and doing breath work together. That's been so powerful. And I know that we will see each other very soon. So thank you so much, Amy. Such a pleasure. I'm just so honored. So thank you for saying yes.
Thank you for asking and the invite, and thank you too for weaving the magic that you do in the world. You know, as breathwork facilitator, as stepmom, as space holder, as all of the things that you do in the world as well. And honoring you and love you so much, woman.
Love you. Thank you. All right, everyone who's listening, I will link everything for you to find Amy in the show notes, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks so much.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.